The whispering walls. When I was 19, I moved into an old, creaky apartment in the city. It was my first place on my own, and I was thrilled to have my own space, even if it was a little run down. The rent was cheap, which should have been my first red flag, but I was too excited to care. The building was a relic from the 1920s, with peeling wallpaper, warped wooden floors, and a faint smell of mildew that no amount of cleaning could erase. The walls were paper thin, and I could hear every footstep, every cough, and every creak from the unit above me. But the worst part, the whispering. It started about a week after I moved in. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I heard a faint murmur coming from the wall beside my bed. At first, I thought it was the neighbors. Maybe they were talking late at night or watching TV with the volume too low. But the more I listened, the more I realized it didn't sound like any language I recognized. The whispers were low, guttural, and rhythmic, almost like a chant. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the building settling or my imagination running wild. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, more insistent, as if they were trying to tell me something. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I pressed my ear to the wall, trying to make out what was being said. The moment I did, the whispers stopped. The silence was deafening. And then, clear as day, I heard my name. Not whispered, spoken. It was a voice I didn't recognize, deep and cold, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I jumped back, my heart pounding, and stared at the wall as if it might come alive. That's when I noticed something else, a faint, almost imperceptible scratching sound, like nails dragging across the other side of the wall. The next day, I went to see my landlord, Mr. Grayson. He was an older man with a permanent scowl and a cigarette dangling from his lips. I asked him about the building's history, trying to sound casual. He hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he studied me. "Why do you ask?" he said, his voice gruff. I told him about the whispers, leaving out the part about hearing my name. His face went pale, and he took a long drag from his cigarette before answering. "The last tenant in your unit. She disappeared," he said, his voice low. "No note, no warning. Just gone. The police searched the place, but they never found anything. Some folks say she went crazy, hearing things in the walls. Others say, well, never mind. It's probably nothing." I didn't like the way he said probably. The whispers didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Every night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the wall, listening to the murmurs grow louder and louder. And then there were the scratches. I started waking up with thin, red marks on my arms and legs, as if something had been clawing at me in my sleep. I tried to convince myself it was just my nails, but the marks were too deep, too precise. One morning, I found a long, jagged scratch running down the length of my bedroom wall. It looked fresh, as if it had been made that night. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I bought a voice recorder and set it up by the wall before going to bed. If I could capture the whispers, maybe I could prove I wasn't going crazy. That night, the whispers were louder than ever. They sounded like they were coming from all around me, echoing through the room. I buried my head under the pillow, trying to block them out, but it was no use. I didn't sleep a wink. The next morning, I played back the recording. At first, there was nothing but static. And then, faintly, I heard the whispers. They were clearer now, more distinct. I could make out individual words, though I still couldn't understand the language. And then, just as I was about to turn it off, I heard a voice, deep and distorted, saying, "You're next." I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a bag and decided to stay with a friend for a few days. As I was leaving, I ran into Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who lived across the hall. She took one look at my face and said, "You've heard them, haven't you?" I nodded, too shaken to speak. She sighed and leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "This building, it's not right. People have been hearing those whispers for years. Some say it's the walls themselves trying to warn us. Others say it's something else, something that lives in the walls. But whatever it is, it doesn't like being ignored. And once it chooses you, it doesn't let go." I moved out the next day, but not before spending one last night in the apartment. I don't know why I did it, maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid. But as soon as the sun went down, the whispers started again. This time, they weren't just in the walls. They were in my head, echoing through my thoughts, drowning out everything else. I tried to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The scratches on the walls grew deeper, spreading like cracks in glass. And then I saw it, a shadow, moving behind the wallpaper, as if something was trapped inside, trying to get out. I don't remember how I got out of the apartment. All I remember is running down the stairs, the whispers chasing me, and the feeling of something cold and wet brushing against my skin. I moved to a new place across town, but the whispers followed me. At first, they were faint, almost imperceptible. But now, they're getting louder. I hear them in the walls, in the pipes, even in my dreams. And sometimes when I'm alone, I swear I can feel something watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. I don't know what's in the walls, but I know this: it's not done with me. And if you ever hear whispers in the night, don't listen. Don't try to understand. Just run. Because once it knows you're listening, it never lets go.